strike fast, strike close, vanish before they can breathe. That was Commander Dick O'Kane's creed, and it made the USS Tang the deadliest submarine of World War II. But on one quiet night in 1944, that same precision, that same perfection, turned against them. This is the haunting story of how the hunter became the hunted the night the USS Tang sank. The night was still, and the Pacific stretched endlessly in every direction, a dark canvas rippling under the faint shimmer of stars. The USS Tang moved quietly across that vast silence, its engines humming like a heartbeat beneath the waves. Inside the steel body of the submarine, the air was thick with tension and focus. Every sound, every whisper mattered. In the control room, dim red lights bathed the faces of the crew in a calm, eerie glow. At the periscope stood Commander Richard Dick O'Kane, calm, poised, and sharp-eyed. His voice was quiet but certain, the kind of voice that could steady fear itself. He had been here before many times. The chase, the silence, the fire, and the escape. But tonight felt different. The sea was too calm, too still, as if it was waiting. O'Kane didn't believe in superstition, yet the ocean had its own language, and sometimes it whispered warnings only sailors could feel. Above, the sky was cloudless, stars glimmered faintly, and far in the distance, somewhere unseen, the enemy moved through the dark. Tang's crew was ready, as always. Steady hands, clear minds, hearts pounding in rhythm with the hum of the ship. None of them knew that this would be their final patrol, that before dawn the Pacific would claim one of the greatest submarines in history. On this night, courage and fate were sailing side by side. Long before he commanded the Tang, Dick O'Kane had served aboard another submarine, the famous USS Wahoo. Under the fiery leadership of Commander Dudley "Mush" Morton, O'Kane learned the true art of submarine warfare. Morton was bold, almost reckless, attacking enemy convoys at close range and surfacing at night to finish them with gunfire. O'Kane, by contrast, was quieter, more analytical, a man who studied every move and memorized every risk. Together, they were unstoppable. Morton's daring matched by O'Kane's precision. On the Wahoo, O'Kane learned what courage meant in the deep. He learned how silence could save lives, how patience could win battles, and how one wrong sound could bring death. He saw victory after victory, Japanese freighters sent to the bottom of the sea, enemy destroyers fooled by Wahoo's stealth. The bond between commander and crew became unbreakable. But war is not kind to legends. When the Wahoo failed to return from a patrol in late 1943, O'Kane was devastated. Morton and his crew had vanished without a trace. No wreck, no signal, no survivors. Just silence. That loss changed him. O'Kane carried Wahoo's spirit in his heart, her courage, her aggression, her refusal to yield. He vowed to honor Morton by becoming not just a hunter, but a master of the ocean's silence. When he was finally given command of his own submarine, the USS Tang, he knew this was his chance to continue what Wahoo had started. But this time he would do it his way, with precision, control, and the calm defiance that would make him one of the greatest submarine commanders of World War II. The USS Tang was not just another submarine. She was the finest machine of her kind. A Ballot-class submarine built for endurance, speed, and stealth, the Tang represented the cutting edge of underwater warfare. Her hull was sleek, her sonar advanced, and her torpedoes deadlier than any before. But what truly made her remarkable was not the steel or the engineering, it was the men inside her. Commander O'Kane handpicked his crew, skilled, fearless, and loyal beyond question. They were more than sailors. They were a brotherhood beneath the waves. From her first patrol, Tang proved different. O'Kane's tactics were daring but never reckless. He would strike from close range, attacking in darkness, then disappear before the enemy could react. He had mastered the art of invisibility, of moving like a shadow through the deep. Each torpedo he fired carried precision, each maneuver executed with surgical timing. Within months, Tang became the most feared submarine in the Pacific. Enemy convoys that once moved confidently now traveled in fear, whispering her name, Tang, the ghost in the water. O'Kane's philosophy was simple. A submarine was not built to survive, but to win. His leadership was quiet, calm, and absolute. His men followed him not out of rank, but out of faith. They trusted his judgment, his instincts, and his uncanny ability to outthink the enemy. Night after night, they struck, sank, and vanished. Every victory added to their legend. The Tang wasn't just another submarine anymore. She was a hunter unlike any other. And as her reputation grew, so did the bond among her crew. They were unstoppable, unshakable and unknowingly, sailing toward destiny. October 1944. The war in the Pacific had reached a fevered pitch. Japan's empire was shrinking, and the seas were filled with desperate convoys carrying fuel, weapons, and soldiers. That month, the USS Tang set out on her 5th war patrol, the one that would make her immortal. Her orders were clear. Patrol the Formosa Strait between Taiwan and the Chinese coast, where enemy shipping lanes were thick and dangerous. O'Kane studied the charts with quiet focus, tracing the currents and predicting where the enemy would pass. He had done this dozens of times before, and every time he was right. For days, Tang prowled the strait like a predator in waiting. Her crew moved with the silent rhythm of experience. Each man knew his task, each breath measured and purposeful. They found their first target at dusk, a Japanese convoy moving in tight formation. O'Kane ordered a submerged approach. Torpedoes hissed into the night, striking with deadly accuracy. 2 ships erupted in flames, painting the sky with orange fire. Depth charges soon followed, thunder rolling through the water, but Tang slipped away unscathed. The next days brought more success. Convoy after convoy fell to O'Kane's precision. The Tang was on fire, not from damage but from triumph. The men believed they were untouchable. Even the sea seemed to favor them, calm and obedient under O'Kane's command. Yet beneath that confidence a faint unease stirred. The deeper the Tang went, the closer she came to the edge of fate. O'Kane knew it, though he never said it aloud. Luck is a fragile thing in war, and in the silent world below it can vanish without a sound. On the night of October 24, 1944, the USS Tang prepared for one final attack. The ocean was quiet, the stars distant. The crew worked in near silence, every movement rehearsed 100 times before. Their target was close. Their aim was perfect. None of them knew that within the next hour, the hunter would become the hunted, and the name Tang would be forever written into history, not for victory, but for tragedy. It was just past midnight when the USS Tang found her prey. Through the periscope, Commander O'Kane spotted a Japanese convoy moving across the calm waters of the Formosa Strait. There were transports, tankers, and escorts, a perfect target. The air inside the submarine was tense but steady. Orders were spoken softly, every man in position. The first torpedo slid from the tube with a deep metallic sigh. Seconds later, a bright flash illuminated the sea. One ship exploded in a bloom of fire, its stern lifting as it broke apart. The crew watched in awe as O'Kane called for the next target. Another torpedo, another explosion. The enemy fleet was in chaos. Tang had fired all but 2 of her torpedoes. O'Kane decided to finish the job. Tube 10 and fire. The torpedo streaked through the dark water, leaving behind a silver trail. Moments later, another explosion shook the horizon. The crew cheered quietly, exhilarated but disciplined. 1 torpedo remained. O'Kane wanted to make it count. He aimed at a straggling transport, range less than 1,000 yards, an easy shot. "Fire 10, he said calmly. The torpedo left the tube cleanly, slicing into the dark. Seconds passed. Then something changed. The sonar operator frowned. "Sir, torpedo's running erratic." O'Kane's brow tightened. "Say again," the reply came. "Torpedoes circling back." In that instant, time froze. O'Kane's eyes shot to the scope, searching the black surface. Then the unimaginable appeared, the faint white wake of their own torpedo curving around, coming straight for them. "All ahead full," he shouted. The engines roared, the submarine lurched forward, but it was too late. A blinding flash split the night as the torpedo struck the Tang near her stern. The explosion tore through steel and fire. Lights went out, men were thrown against walls, and the sea rushed in like a living force. Within seconds, the Tang, America's most successful submarine, was dying. The crew fought to seal compartments, but the pressure was relentless. Water filled the hull, metal screamed, and in the chaos O'Kane was thrown overboard, plunging into the cold Black Sea. The night fell silent again, the waves closing over the wreck like a shroud. In the stillness that followed, the Pacific returned to calm, as if nothing had happened. Only scattered debris floated on the surface, and a handful of survivors clung to life in the dark. For them and for O'Kane, This would mark not just the end of a submarine, but the beginning of a haunting that would echo through history, the night the USS Tang sank. The explosion had been sudden, final, and deafening. When the light faded, darkness swallowed everything. Deep inside what was left of the USS Tang, the surviving crew struggled to comprehend what had happened. The submarine groaned like a wounded beast, the pressure of the ocean pressing against the twisted metal hull. Cold seawater poured into compartments, hissing as it met hot pipes and sparking wires. Men shouted to one another through the smoke and confusion, but their words were drowned by the sea's terrible roar. Some were gone instantly, taken by the blast or trapped behind sealed bulkheads. In the forward section, a few men survived, bruised, bleeding, but alive. They could feel the floor tilting beneath them, the air growing thinner, the water rising inch by inch. Every sound became sharper. The creak of metal, the hiss of air, the faint sob of someone praying. They knew they were more than 200 feet below the surface, and the only way out was through a small escape trunk designed for emergencies few ever lived to attempt. Above the wreck, Commander Dick O'Kane floated unconscious in the dark water, his ears ringing, his lungs burning. When he awoke, the world around him was silent, except for the gentle lap of waves. The Tang was gone, vanished beneath the sea. All that remained were fragments of debris, oil, and the glow of distant fires from the enemy ships they had destroyed. He called out, his voice raw and cracked. For a long moment, there was no answer. Then faintly he heard others, the weak shouts of men still alive, scattered across the water. For hours, O'Kane and a handful of survivors drifted together in the wreckage, clinging to pieces of the submarine, their faces lit only by the reflection of the moon. They had escaped the inferno, but not the sea. As dawn approached, the calm surface broke again, Japanese patrol boats searching the wreckage. The survivors were pulled from the water, their bodies shaking, their faces pale and hollow. They had lived through the sinking of the most successful submarine in the U.S. Navy, only to become prisoners in the hands of the very enemy they had hunted. For Dick O'Kane and the few men who survived the Tang, captivity was a new kind of battle, one fought not with weapons but with endurance. They were taken to a Japanese prison camp, where they faced cold cells, starvation, and the constant weight of silence. The guards treated them harshly, often interrogating them about their missions, their tactics, and the fate of their submarine. None of them spoke of the torpedo that had circled back, the cruel twist of fate that had turned their final victory into tragedy. O'Kane spent long nights replaying that moment in his mind, the sound of his own torpedo's motor echoing in his memory. He wondered if he could have done anything differently, if he had pushed his luck too far. Yet even in that pain he refused to see it as failure. His men had fought with courage and precision until the very end, and their deaths had come not from error, but from the cruel hand of fate. Months passed slowly. The war outside raged on, but inside the camp time felt frozen. O'Kane kept the spirit of the Tang alive in stories and memories. He reminded his surviving crew that they had achieved greatness. 33 ships sunk, countless lives saved by cutting off enemy supplies. He told them they would endure, not for revenge but for remembrance. When Japan finally surrendered in August 1945, the prisoners were freed. O'Kane stepped out into the sunlight, thinner, older, and marked by the weight of everything he had seen. Yet his eyes still carried the same calm strength that had once guided his men beneath the sea. He had lost his ship, but not his purpose. The Tang's story would not end in the deep. It would live through the words and will of its commander. After the war, Dick O'Kane returned home to a nation that hailed him as one of its greatest naval heroes. He was awarded the Medal of Honor, along with several other decorations, but when reporters asked about his achievements, he always turned the attention back to his men. "The real heroes," he said softly, "are the ones who never came back." The record of the USS Tang stood unmatched, 33 enemy ships destroyed in just 5 patrols. Her tactics, perfected by O'Kane, became the blueprint for modern submarine warfare. Yet her end remained one of the most haunting stories in naval history, the hunter destroyed by its own weapon. The last torpedo that sank her became a symbol of the ocean's unpredictable power, a reminder that even perfection can meet its undoing. For years, O'Kane visited naval academies and memorials, speaking not of glory but of leadership, duty, and the human cost of war. He spoke softly, never dramatizing his story, always with the quiet dignity of a man who had faced both triumph and tragedy. In his later years, he often said that the Tang was more than a submarine. It was a family. "We were brothers," he once told a young officer, "bound by courage, not by chance." Today, the Tang rests at the bottom of the Formosa Strait, a silent monument to bravery and innovation. The sea holds her close, her hull now part of the underwater world she once ruled. Each year, submariners remember her, the sound of her name whispered with respect, like a prayer for those who never surfaced again. And above the waves, her legacy endures. In every submarine that dives beneath the ocean, in every commander who listens to the quiet before battle, and in every soul who understands that heroism is not about victory, but about sacrifice, the ocean has always been a keeper of secrets. Beneath its endless surface lie stories of courage, loss, and the fragile line between life and legend. The USS Tang's story is one of those, a tale of brilliance, bravery, and fate's cruel irony. For Commander Dick O'Kane, the sea was both a battlefield and a teacher. It showed him the limits of human control, the cost of ambition, and the beauty of devotion. O'Kane lived the rest of his life quietly, never seeking attention. He knew that the ocean doesn't honor loud voices, it honors those who listen. And somewhere, far below the Pacific waves, the Tang still rests, her name etched in history, her story echoing softly through the deep. The sea remembers. It remembers the courage of men who dared to challenge it, the fire of their last stand and the silence that followed. The night the USS Tang sank was not just an ending, it was a beginning of legend. Beneath the calm surface of the ocean, where time moves slowly and memories drift like currents, the spirit of the Tang and her commander still sail on, unseen, unbroken, and forever undefeated.